So let's talk a little bit more now about what about the sort of natural decline. So we mentioned that, it's going to decline from the age 25 um, to 30, somewhere around there. And by the time you're 70, from the age 25 to 70, there's likely to be about an 80% overall reduction in that DHEA hormone. So it is one of those ones that categorically tends to go down as we age. Now, there's always anomalies. We're all unique creatures. Some people expedite faster than others. I see some patients in our 60s, 70s that have better levels than some of our patients in their 20s and 30s. So there's going to be a huge variability from one person to the next. And depending on our, maybe our genetics, our upbringing, our toxicity burden, our gut health, there's going to be lots of reasons why it, speeds up faster in some people than others. So getting into testing a little bit, there's three basic ways to measure it. The first is blood, as I just mentioned previously. That range could be anywhere from 0 to 15. Most people in our practice are going to fall somewhere between, say, 3 and, say, 10. Definitely have seen people lower. I've seen people higher. And that sweet spot is always a unique individual reference for the person. But in general, when it is on the lower end, like I said, below 6, 5 or 6, we do see these people more symptomatic for brain fog and fatigue and slow recovery after an immune insult or more frequent infections. They could also be depressed or be experiencing symptoms of anxiety, so that mood could definitely be affected. It can also affect someone's libido, and we mentioned just regarding like just that mental resiliency, feeling alert and present and being able to overcome emotional stressors. Those are all things that would show up as a problem, when DHEA declines. So we mentioned blood is one. You can also measure it in the saliva, and then you can measure it in the urine. We don't do a ton of saliva testing. There's many reasons, which we're not going to get into right now, why I don't use saliva, but I do like urine. Urine is great because we're getting a 4-point measurement. So it's called the dry urine hormone test. You've heard us talk about this before. We're measuring first morning urine, a couple hours after waking, a couple hours after that, and then we're measuring a nighttime urine. And that gives us what's called a diurnal variation. So we can see the swing in cortisol throughout the day. So we get a much more reflective picture of this adrenal stress on this hormone DHEA. And then when you've got that ratio of knowing your cortisol to DHEA, you know much more specifically how that's landing in your life, versus blood, where blood is just an overall DHEAS number. The DHEA value in the urine test is in reference to this 4-point cortisol, which is definitely more thorough. Now, in saliva, you can definitely measure DHEA over those intervals as well. I just prefer the data that you get out of urine versus saliva. So, and as I mentioned, there's something called DHEAS versus DHEA. So just like in thyroid hormone, thyroid can be in the form of T4, inactive thyroid, to T3, which would be active thyroid. And that conversion usually takes place in the liver in regards to thyroid hormone. DHEA does that same conversion. We need DHEAS to move into DHEA in order for it to be active in the inner mitochondrial membrane, where it does all its magic and upregulates growth factors and things like that. So let's dive into just the acronym that we usually use for DHEA. So mind, mood, memory, metabolism, and the extra M. So 5 M's would be immune. So there's 2 M's in immune. So that's why we add it to the list. So it's like it's the 5 M's. So let's break them down a little bit. So mind. We just mentioned that when DHEA is on that higher end of normal, that upper range, people tend to be more mentally resilient. So that's what we refer to the mind. There's this mental toughness, there's ability to get through, there's ability to overcome. There's a sense of purpose and motivation that typically shows up when people have higher levels of DHEA. Now, again, that's not everybody, but that's definitely what we see as a general trend. So we know that on that level of mind and that level of resilience, that resilience can show up or break down in many different circumstances. It could be with work or with relationships, or the mental toughness that goes into just even exercise. So the mind is one of those areas that DHEA definitely plays a significant role. And then you've got mood. So mood, there's been plenty of studies to look at DHEA's role on anxiety, depression. So it has this ability to sort of lift us out of that fog, that veil of disappointment or suffering, or whatever it may be, the triggering mechanism that keeps us in that depressed state. And again, when you sort of correlate that mind to mood, when we have more mental toughness, more resiliency, we're able to overcome. We're able to accentuate the feelings of getting things done and moving us towards our goals. And so there's plenty of information to show that DHEA plays a powerful role on enhancing mood. The next one is memory. So memory, DHEA plays a significant role in the hippocampus. The hippocampus is one of the main memory centers of the brain, and that involves working memory. So when you're needing to access information in the moment, it's not like, geez, I know it's in there somewhere. How do I, I'm sure all of us have been in this situation where you're trying to, access that piece of that detail that you wanted to share with your friend, your partner, or whatever, and it's just not quite there. And so DHEA plays a role in that working memory. And there's some information to show that potentially it's going to play a role in cognitive decline too. So as we age, DHEA goes down, we're higher risk or greater risk for the diseases of aging, Alzheimer's, dementia being some of the more scary ones when it comes to memory loss. And so there's some positive information to show that as you support and engage or increase DHEA levels, that it can have some positive effect on memory outcomes as we age. So again, is it all about supplementing it in, or is it looking for the ways in which we're getting depleted? And then how do we support our body's natural release of this hormone instead of, squashing it down as a result of our lifestyle choices, right? And then metabolism. So metabolism plays a significant role in improving insulin sensitivity. So helping the pancreas to release insulin when it's needed and helping the binding of that hormone to bring sugar and energy out of the blood and put it into the cell to make it do its job. And that's hugely important, especially in the world that we live in, when insulin resistance is on the rise, obviously obesity, diabetes type 2. These are huge complications that are leading to downstream issues to the cardiovascular realm. They say that, Alzheimer's, dementia is type 3 diabetes in the brain, so you can't access that energy in the form of glucose or fatty acids to really support cellular function and cellular energy in the brain. So if we have a natural hormone that can support insulin sensitivity, we're going to be more efficient with our energy. We're going to be less likely to pack on that visceral fat, which is going to drive that bus of inflammation, which is depreciating the quality of our neurological connections inside the brain. So that's significant. And one thing I should say back to the mind is that there's some interesting data to show that DHEA helps to increase neurogenesis. BDNF, increasing the brain-derived neurotropic factor to help stimulate new neuronal growth. And as DHEA declines, we're going to get less of that hormone to support that re-stimulation. So even in the realm of post head injury and traumatic brain injury, CTEs and things like that, it's more common to see DHEA decline. So DHEA again is being stimulated through a stress response typically. So adrenal corticotropic hormone, ACTH, gets released from the pituitary gland to go down to the adrenal glands to tell DHEA to get released. But when we've had a head injury, when there's neural inflammation in the brain, that communication to release DHEA is diminished. And so this is why when we're supporting people with CTE or traumatic brain injury or neuroinflammation as a result of the gut-brain axis or all the many different things that we can get harmed by, pesticides, heavy metals, et cetera, that neuroinflammation is going to deteriorate the ability of DHEA to do its job. So many roles for DHEA.